What else? Oh, yeah, the coronavirus. So 16,000 or so Americans have died from it, which is terrible. I hate to see it. I don't want to get the disease. I don't want you to get the disease. I pray and mourn with those who've lost loved ones. It's just terrible. Um, but we can't shut the country down to try to do what? I don't know. One of the scandals, and there are scandals related to the government's response to the coronavirus, is the use and misuse of models to justify government-wide shutdowns or statewide shutdowns. The one thing that you need to remember is that the President of the United States and the federal government isn't shutting down the country. They have recommendations that some people may interpret as requiring shutdowns, but that's not what the recommendations say. These are state-by-state decisions by governors who are panicked. Ask your governor when they're going to open the state up. Ask your governor what is the basis for keeping all of our kids at home. What is the basis for shutting down our economy and destroying our government? Destroying our national fabric. 16, 17 million people are unemployed right now. And now we're being told the earliest we can open up is May. We're going to have 30 million people unemployed by then. Our healthcare sector is being decimated. And we're all supposed to forget what we were told about this. With mitigation, it'd be 100,000 deaths. With mitigation. If we were doing what we were supposed to do now, there'd be 100,000 deaths. Now those numbers are falling apart. Now it looks like the number of deaths will be 60,000, and it'll probably be even lower than that. You know, Dr. Fauci, in a study he authored, or an article he authored for the New England Journal of Medicine, I encourage you to go look it up. He said in February, I think the date of the article was, that when all is said and done, it looks like the coronavirus will just be like a severe flu season. And I say just like, in the sense that the number of deaths will be just like a severe flu season. It doesn't mean we want 60,000 people to die. It doesn't mean we should be happy about it. It means that we've got to place this in the or understand the risk for what it is and not overstate it. We've got to get back to work. And the longer this goes on, the more constitutionally suspect these shutdowns are. They're restricting access to grocery stores, telling you got to wear a mask and other things to get food now. In D.C., they shut down farmers markets so you can't get food from that access. They're now restricting access to food. To be clear, governors, in the case of D.C., the mayor, are restricting access to food. So if I want to go buy food for my family, I got to find a mask, I got to put it on. By the way, we were told by just a minute and a half ago, practically speaking, that masks weren't required. Now they are required. I don't object necessarily to wearing a mask. I object to being required to wear a mask. To buy food for my family. And I can go to a grocery store, but I can't go do other errands? How long is this going to go on? If I were the president, I'd reorganize and reorient my task force. And this is what he should do. He doesn't even need to create a separate task force to change it to reopening the country. If you are given advice by a doctor, you've got this risk factor for getting a disease, let's say among you or your family. And the only way to do that is to quit your job and never leave the house for the next 3 months and destroy your life savings. And it's not guaranteed that you'll get it. It's not guaranteed even if you get it, you'll die. You'd say no. It's not rational to shut down a nation in response to a pandemic. You can't end a pandemic, you can't cure a pandemic by killing an economy. You just can't. Our economy is our life. You can't have health care without an economy. You can't feed your kids without an economy. And the government can't spend enough to replace an economy. The left hates the idea of, quote, an economy because they're Marxist in orientation and they don't understand that the word economy and economic life is the lifeblood of our freedom. Property is the lifeblood of our freedom. Without it, we have nothing. Instead, the left is talking about rent forgiveness, mandating all sorts of giveaways from one segment of the population to another. Look, I know there's an emergency. In many ways, the government has deprived people of their private property rights, and they deserve compensation. I tell you, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits over this the longer it goes on. Attorney General Barr was on TV this week. He was suggesting almost as much. So you got to call the president, you got to call Congress, and you need to try to get the country back open again. The coronavirus crisis is no longer a crisis. The crisis is the destruction of our economy and our freedoms. Yes, too many people will die from the coronavirus. Too many people will get sick from the coronavirus. We don't want anyone to get sick. There's no scientific evidence. This is an experiment, a radical experiment that has no basis in science to shut down an entire nation to control a pandemic. We see this in real time. Places where they didn't really pursue a shutdown are not being affected. Places where shutdowns have been pursued are being affected in a calamitous way. So there's something else going on with the way this virus is spread that isn't necessarily controlled by this arbitrary and overbroad shutdown. You see it state by state, you see it across the country, you see it across the world. I mean, Japan, for instance, they didn't do the shutdown craziness the way we did. They don't have the problem we have. Why is that? There's no science behind this precipitous shutdown by the state governors. And again, it's the state governors doing it. So I encourage you, because I say, there's a lot at risk here. Our economy is being put at risk. The left must be cheering on the destruction of our rights because they see opportunities here for other emergencies. And now they're using it as a way to destroy our election systems. So we've got to end it. But just think of the healthcare industry. It's being decimated right now. In New York, it's terrible, I recognize. I mean, even if things are getting better in New York, I'm sure there are hospitals under stress. The rest of the country, the hospitals aren't under stressed. They are in the sense of economically, regular access to health care has been curtailed. I'd like the president to direct his task force to model the economic destruction of the shutdown, the health devastation of the shutdown, the impact on our health industry of the shutdown. When they ban elective medical treatments, that means someone isn't going to pursue medical treatment where it might otherwise be required. It might otherwise save their life if it's done in a timely way. Where's the accountability for that? And of course the president's instincts are with this approach. But in the end, it's the governors who are going to open up the states. And the governors need to get their act together and stop panicking. I see Governor DeSantis in Florida, who was hesitant to issue a radical shutdown order, was cornered into doing one. And now he's talking about opening up the schools in May, which is the right thing to be talking about. I recognize there are going to be restrictions. Dr. Fauci's right. We're going to operate very differently until we have good treatments in place and maybe a vaccine. I don't think there'll probably be a vaccine. I hope there is, but I think we should pretend there won't be one or plan for one not to be if you're trying to plan it out. If one's created, that's great. So there may be restrictions, common sense restrictions. The American people can figure that out on their own, thank you. And what is the data? Forget about the models which have been blown up. The data is real time. You look at hospitalizations, you look at ICU, utilization, and if you see that rising, you see it related, that's your real time. That's taking the temperature of hospital systems. You got to monitor that so the government and public health authorities can act to take whatever reasonable steps they can to try to figure out why coronavirus is popping up in a jurisdiction or a location. But the idea that, someone in Texas or in Kansas or in Oklahoma should be under the same type of lockdown as someone in Midtown Manhattan is absurd. Frankly, and even in New York, it's absurd. Is Buffalo the same as New York City? I haven't looked at. I've had that on my list. Maybe this can be your little project for those of you watching. Go and see what's happening in Buffalo, or in Albany, or Binghamton, Syracuse. Should they be treated the same as New York City? Common sense has got to be. I don't know. Is there a pill for common sense we can give governors and politicians? The only common sense is going to come from pressure from voters who are tired of having. I mean, have you seen the food lines? It's outrageous. These are people who can't afford food because they've been put out of work by a government, unthinking, gargantuan toddler of a government, walking around demanding, smashing without any thinking. And I made this tweet the other day. I encourage you to follow my tweet feed because it's because I talk about these issues a lot on my Twitter at Tom Fitton. Of course, Judicial Watch is covering it as well at Judicial Watch. All of this. I don't want to see any more public service announcements by wealthy and famous individuals living in the lap of luxury, telling us we should all stay home. We're all in this together. Yeah, we're all in this together in the sense we're praying that no one gets sick, praying for our healthcare workers that they don't get sick, praising their heroism in treating these patients in harrowing circumstances, praying for the families of everyone who gets sick. But we're not all in this together in terms of the impact on our personal lives. Because there are millions of Americans who can't stay home because they rely on going to work to pay the bills and to eat. So we're not all in this together. Because this shutdown is affecting. Talk about where's the left on this? They're playing the race card in terms of the impact on COVID, on medical care, and the impact on COVID for minorities. You can bet this shutdown is disproportionately affecting minorities and the working poor who have no jobs, no way to pay the bills. Sure, there have been some forgiveness issues with utilities, and people are giving them a break, everyone a break. That doesn't pay the bills, though. In the end, the money still's owed. I'd like to. Everyone promoting a shutdown in the media, I'd like to know if they're being paid. Not to work or work from home. because it's easy to promote a shutdown if you've got no skin in the game. So Judicial Watch has several Freedom of Information Act requests pending about these issues, about the models, about the Chinese connection, about the sorts of issues that you would care about. If you've got FOIA ideas, I encourage you to send them to us. You can go online. You can see how to communicate with us online at judicialwatch.org, or you can leave your FOIA ideas in the comments. We try to review the comments from time to time here as well. So in the meantime, I'm hoping that you stay healthy and safe. I'm hoping this economic contagion is not affecting you, and I pray that the burden, if it is affecting you, is lifted as quickly as humanly possible. And I hope that we're all together in trying to end this coronavirus shutdown, because that's the greatest threat to the nation there is right now.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.